Welcome in to SportsSource.tv. This is our overtime segment for the day. We have Bob Hodge, Jimmy Himes, Sterling Hinton, Chuck Cavaleris down there. This segment brought to you by one of my oldest clients, Blue Smoke Cigar. Now that's a new name for Smokin' Joe's. Smokin' Joe's still have the original, or have the great location down in Alcoa, down in Blount County. But this is their latest, what would you call it, enterprise, their latest launch. It is a terrific cigar lounge. And if you've been looking for an upscale place to just relax with a cigar, this is the place to do it. They've got card tables, they've got golf simulators, they've got HD TVs, they got the leather seating, they've got a great walk-in humidor. Good stuff. Blue Smoke Cigar, check it out. They're located out South Peters Road between South Peters Road and Rafferty's. You can't miss the sign. Blue Smoke Cigar. All right. It's the fall of 2003. Somehow I convinced all of you to drive to Seymour in our little studio up there for $25. I was paying a whopping $25 back then. Not much more now. Tennessee was 4 seasons removed from a national title in football. It was right there. They would go on that year to win 10 games in football. Basketball was still, after the Jerry Green, Buzz Peterson was, you're still wondering if he can turn it around. Pat Summitt and the Lady Vols, still one of the 2 biggest brands out there in women's basketball. Obviously, the answer is no here, but I think it would be such a resounding no is the trick. Could you have ever imagined then, when we were starting this, that 15 years down the road, first of all, we'd still be here, but 15 years from now, we'd be looking at a football program that hasn't won a title since that 98 championship, a basketball program that went to #1 in the country and an Elite 8, and then fell back, and you've had 3 or 4 coaches there. And then obviously the illness with Pat Summitt and the fact that UConn has really supplanted Tennessee as the #1 program. It's not just that things changed over those 15 years. They've changed drastically, mostly for the worse, almost across the board at Tennessee. Thoughts on where it's gone over the last 15 years? Anyway.
There was no way that I think anybody would have said, okay, the heights that we're at in football and women's basketball, there's a good chance that we'll fall away from that. But to fall as far and in the ridiculous manner in which it fell, that's what's surprising. It's not just that things changed. It became a joke.
It was like someone
travesty.
It was like somebody put a hex on the program.
Yes.
and just it all went south for, and just it's biblical proportions in terms of
the basketball program alone. Yeah. What it went through between now and then.
What happens in those situations when you change leaderships? Well, you just never know. And there's been a lot of leadership change at Tennessee. Been a lot of leadership, even, whether it's in football, whether it's in politics or political football, that changes. But it just, when you look at the things that were in place in 2003, you had it really going well. Men's basketball was struggling, as you pointed out, but football and women's basketball, the president that was in place at Tennessee, the athletic director, the leadership that you had was really strong. And as you've made some changes, some of those changes were not good changes for Tennessee, and that has led them to the struggles they've had more recently.
Well, I'm excited about the next 15 years.
Okay, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Let's get to it.
We'll get to that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But seriously, be honest.
I am.
You wouldn't have seen, you would have never guessed in 2003 when you're picking Tennessee to go down there to the Orange Bowl and win.
That's right.
They were at a certain level then. You would have never foreseen the way it went downhill.
No.
At that point, no one would have imagined, like you say, that it would have gone so far downhill that Philip Fulmer would have 2 losing seasons in 4 years. You're looking at it saying, well, where are the championships? No one would have thought it would drop that far to where you're losing to Vanderbilt at home. That's the kind of thing. So, and then to go through Lane Kiffin, everybody quickly buys into Kiffin, and he leaves you. And then people sort of kind of buy into Dooley just because. You got to have faith, so that people jump in behind Dooley and then he burns them. Certainly, you would be the one who would be most surprised by the disappointments of the last 15 years because you would have never admitted anything like that was even possible.
and I still don't admit it's going to happen again. But, the thing about it, though, football has gotten so much parity in it right now. We got to deal with the reality. The game, athletics has gotten so much parity right now. We are still Tennessee, but Tennessee has, a downline of coaches that have gone other places. and they have the Tennessee, moxie about them when they get there. And so, with the parity that's in athletics right now, it's hard to win a game every week, no matter who you are playing.
The landscape has changed. There's
Yes,
no,
it's
there's no
changed.
question.
Right.
The conferences have changed, which has changed the level of competition. Money has been. I mean, you've
Oh,
seen
boy.
over our 15 years, you've seen college athletics get a cable boom, cable bubble, really, because now it's about pop, and we'll see where they make their money if you don't get those big TV dollars coming in. But that did even the field. It used to be Tennessee, and I think John Curry said this last week on our show or in between segments, where it used to be Tennessee and 2 or 3 others in the league that had the best facilities, and everybody else had terrible facilities. Now, with all the money that's come in, they may not be up to snuff with Tennessee, but they're still pretty good.
close.
Yeah.
They're better than a lot of facilities around the country.
To
And that
kind of
makes it
use
tougher.
one of the political terms, I mean, it was a little bit like a trickle-down effect. I mean, it was almost like
Lot of trickling.
a thousand paper cuts, or the trickle down, and then the dam breaks. I mean, it was just like a series of things that just kind of worked out against you, that didn't go Tennessee's way, and then. Obviously the horrible thing with Pat, and then all of the coaches change. When you had so much stability on your football program and your staff, and then you start making changes. I remember Mike Stoll saying with the Lane Kiffin hire, this is either going to be a grand slam or it's going to be a terrible mistake, and it's going to take 5 to 10 years to get over it.
Well,
But
as
go ahead.
Jimmy alluded to the leadership, obviously with athletics, but the whole, look at what the entire university.
You don't have Joe Johnson.
That's what I was
I think
talking
that's
about.
what he's talking about. Yeah.
in this time frame, and how
You
I
had as
was-
many presidents as you have football coaches.
And I was having dinner with a UT assistant football coach, and he said that Phil Fulmer had such a luxury of having a president and an athletic director for so long, and then when that changed, okay, you get a president in here who now the football coach is responsible for having the carpet replaced in his office. Well, he didn't. Worrying about that's taking away time from worrying about football. Maybe a small thing, but it happened time and time again, and so that's where it all crumbled. I don't think it crumbled from the bottom. It started coming down from the top and just kept going.
Let me ask you this. We just went through a rotten 15 years. For them, not for the show. And that's interesting, too. Josh Ward had me do a podcast with him this week, and he asked, how much has the sports world impacted the life of the sports source or something thereabouts? And you do wonder. There's part of me that says, well, if Tennessee had been winning at everything, you'd still have people watching like crazy. But if they'd just been average and everything, it's one thing.
You're either gonna be really good or really bad.
You need to be really good or really bad. If people become Mike Hamilton, one of the things that I think people remember that's smart that he said was, you don't want fans to be apathetic. When they don't care, that's when you're in trouble.
Right.
And so I look at these downturns, and I don't know, maybe that helped my business a little bit because people there's some controversy going on over this time. But 15 years weren't the best in UT athletics history, clearly. Do you think, and we've done this at various points over the last few years, have they turned the corner? I ask you now, new athletic director, you got a football coach who's won 9 games the last 2 years, but he's on kind of a, warm seat maybe. Could be hot if he tanks it. You got a basketball coach that's going to go into the Hall of Fame someday. Women's basketball is still sketchy. Do you think this program is set up to have a better next 15 years than it just had the last 15 years?
I sure hope so.
Okay. Everybody hope so. Do you think it's not just due for a change,
Right.
but do you think the next 15 years will be stable and better, or do you think it's going to continue to be kind of up and down? I'm not even going to say, will it get back to the glory days
Right.
of Fulmer Pearl Summit?
I just don't think there's enough evidence to be able to answer that question. You've got an athletic director who has just gotten there. You've got a chancellor who has just gotten there. So the leadership from the top, we don't know exactly which direction it's going to go. I think the easy answer would be sure it is. But I can look at it and say, okay, Holly Warlick could be gone before the end of the season if things don't go well.
If things tank with football.
If Barnes don't go well. So I do not think you can say yes. I think right now you're at it can go either direction.
I think you're looking at a better chance. A lot of the other sports that have dropped off will improve. but I don't think there is enough there to say these three main ones, football, basketball, women's basketball, will return significantly better, although you hope they will. I think you got an athletic director that's going to improve things overall, but I think the jury is still out if you can improve those three big ones.
I think there's one thing you can say about Tennessee athletics. You can't say they're insane. They're not doing the same thing expecting different results. So they
keep
made
making
changes.
changes. Yeah,
They're making changes. And they're doing things to be progressive. And I like the fact we got Bridget Gordon now with Lady Vols. Hey, she's a legend. She's a legend. We got changes in the football staff. And our basketball staff is coming along and they making changes on the team. We got guys that are transferred that have in-game experience. So they're doing things that say they want a positive change. And once again, you got to put it on the field, put it on the court.
Well, and Butch Jones, like you say, there are coaching changes over there. A lot of people always complain about coaches. For years, they complained that Philip Fulmer wouldn't make changes to his staff. Butch Jones has shown that if he thinks there needs to be a move, he'll make the move. We've got to see if it's going to result in championships. Jimmy, your thoughts on where the program's going? If it did this for 15 years, do you think it's now at least going to steady off? Or are you like Bob? It could go down, it could go up. You just don't know. What do you think?
Well, Bob's right. There's no way to know.
Yeah.
Having said that,
Poor question on my part.
Well, no, but I'm going to say that I think it's going to go up, and I'm going to give you two reasons why. One, I think John Curry's going to do a really good job. I like what I've seen the first few months on the job. I think he gets it. I think he's made a couple of good hires. I think, only time will tell, but I think he's made good hires in tennis and baseball. And the other thing is, I believe in cycles. I don't know if Tennessee can go through another 15-year cycle like this. So it's kind of like the East used to be the best in football in the SEC, right? And now it's the West. Well, eventually it's going to shift back to the East. I just can't imagine Tennessee having the bad luck, the bad hires, the bad presidents, the bad whatevers over the next 15 years. So I'm going to say they're going to experience a little bit of an upward trend. How much, I don't know. But I think
if guys, and real quick, I'll give a little bit of a counter argument. Women's basketball has gotten better, while Tennessee has kind of gotten a little worse. So you don't have that luxury of where it matters more at Tennessee and UConn and a couple of other places. Basketball, I mean, are you going to be better than 16-16 or 500? I mean, maybe eventually, but yeah, I haven't really seen that yet. Football, as long as Nick Saban's at Alabama and everybody else is going to be 8-4.
he won't be there for 15 years.
That was what I was
True. Although he keeps giving these interviews saying he can't imagine doing anything but coaching. That's, if you're a Tennessee fan, that's not what
That's
you're
what
going to
turns
hear.
into Joe Paul.
Yeah, he's like, I want to coach till I'm 1,000.
You know, a little twist in your question a little bit. Look at how fans have changed since 2003. Look how fandom has changed.
Social media.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
Look how the world's
I think-
changed. due to
yes.
Twitter.
I think since Tennessee athletics have been, for the better part of 15 years, more or less a dumpster fire, I think it has had an impact on fans. And I think Tennessee fans now have lost all patience. And I think that's what makes, and you and I talk a lot about, is Tennessee fans different than other fans? Is this the fan base that's quicker to do X, Y, or Z? I think it's the loss of patience at Tennessee fans, and the fact that you had 3 programs that within a decade were up here and bottomed out. I think that's the biggest difference. And yes, the social media just makes that impatience worse.
Yeah, and you actually mentioned this to me a month ago or so, saying Tennessee picked the wrong time because the advent of Twitter and everybody has a voice.
Yeah.
Was that rose is right as Tennessee started tanking. It wasn't even the first part of those 15 years. It's the last decade when the stuff really started flying and hitting the fan over there. It was perfect timed with social media's rise. So not only do you have people mad, but now mad people have
They're connected.
a tower that they can broadcast from.
And most of that tanking has been since what, 2008 or 9?
Yeah.
Right.
Since probably 8. Well, you could say 2005 was the beginning because that's when Philip Fulmer had his first losing season. You lose to Vanderbilt.
But
But
he played
2008 was really the.
Yeah, he played for a championship in
Seven.
07. So 08, I guess the women won basketball. So I'd say 09
08.
forward is when it's really been down for Tennessee.
Yes.
Really down.
Guys, thank you very much for being part of the show all the way back to Seymour, which we showed it in the clip there. I think it's like an insurance agent's office now. It was a studio, and the folks, I want to say we didn't get to say it on the show, but I do want to say thanks to the folks at Big Mama's Karaoke Cafe. They used to do, I don't know if they still do, but they used to do they were the #1 karaoke producer in the world. And they wanted to get into TV, so they built this set for us. And we delivered the signal via the internet. And in 2003, that was shaky ground, baby. There was one episode that actually broadcast in black and white.
Yes.
And they didn't tell me because they knew I would blow my stack on air, which I wouldn't have. I'd have made a comment about, hey, it's our retro throwback show.
Throwback show.
And I would have blown up afterwards, as I did anyway. But they created a really nice little set for us up there. It was good. They put their back into it. I appreciate them. That was the start. I also appreciate David Hall from Hall Salvage. He's now in another line of work now, but if not for David Hall, wouldn't be here today. I called him initially and was going to set up a meeting to go down and talk to him. I wanted to deal, and that's so often with our show, I want to deal with local owners to where I've got their number, they've got my number. It's not media buyers, it's not out of town. If there's an issue, we can hash it out one-on-one. I called David Hall to say, hey, I'd like to come down and meet with you, and we started talking about the show. And after about a 3-hour phone call, he says, and this is my best David Hall, well, I feel if I say no, I'm going to wind up kicking my ass for years. So, so rather than kick his own ass for years, he got involved with us and was a great title partner for a long, long time. And I will always, always appreciate David Hall. And next, I want to say thanks to Melissa Watkins, who, when Hall Salvage moved from the show in Richmond Federal Credit Union, they had wanted on the show. I didn't have a slot for them, so I put them on a waiting list. Slot opened up, Melissa wanted it, jumped into it. Then we had the title thing open up. They jumped in it, and they were our title partner for 4 or 5 years before we moved away from having a title partner above the fold before the sports was. And she was fantastic. Really appreciate Melissa Watkins, David Hall, and the folks at Big Mama Karaoke Cafe, not to mention tons of people at WATE, tons. The list goes on forever. People who helped me personally get this started. The plan for this show, 2003, was a nightly show. We had the station lined up, everything's good, contract signed, and then one station steals the affiliation from another station. So within 3 months of launching and going on the air, had to completely change the business model and everything else. And it wasn't what we expected, but those people helped me get this thing going, and I'll never forget them. And I listed a bunch of people who've been as regulars. We've had other semi-regular guests that I appreciate, but for that crew, who for the most part was at Seymour in year 1 and has been with me ever since, I can't say thanks enough. So Bob, Jimmy, Sterling, Chuck, thank you all, and on behalf of them, thanks to you, the viewers, because none of us would be still doing this after 15 years if it weren't for you. You've made us, our typical audience can't be fit into Thompson Bowling Arena. Sunday morning, 11 o'clock, a sports show that doesn't take calls? You're not supposed to be able to do that. I mean, that's pretty cool. It's like, we're Justin Bieber. We're filling Thompson Bowling. That's Brooks. That's pretty good. So, and Brooks only did 3 shows. We've done 700. So, thank you. Really, really appreciate it, and we'll continue to try and do our best for you. I look forward to telling you who we got coming up on the shows, the Fox show on Saturday mornings during the fall, and then our post-game shows for year 15. Got some new faces in there on Sundays. Should be a great group. Thank you very much. We'll see you next Sunday at 11 on WATE 6.